right, so today we're going to do a deep dive on something that might seem really basic at first.
Okay.
Making appointments in English. Now, you might be thinking, well, I already know how to do that.
Right.
But for English learners, this can be a super useful skill to learn.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it just opens up so many doors to new experiences.
Yeah, you're not just understanding English, you're actually using it to get stuff done.
Exactly.
That's a big step.
For this deep dive, we found a really great podcast called Everyday English.
Okay.
It's specifically for English learners.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of like a mini English class.
I like it.
Where they have really clear explanations and even some role-playing.
Ooh, it's good.
So they break down this whole process of making appointments into these really simple steps.
I'm curious what stood out to you.
Well, one thing I noticed is they really try to use simple English.
Makes sense.
Which is great for beginners.
Yeah.
They avoid using like really complex grammar or idioms.
Right.
It's just very clear, very concise language. It's easy to remember.
So it's not just about the grammar rules.
Right.
It's showing how to actually use it.
Exactly.
In a real conversation.
And they have this whole section where they role play a conversation at the dentist's office.
Oh, that's fun.
Which is, something that pretty much everyone can relate to.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about some of the key phrases that they highlight in the podcast.
All right.
One that really stood out to me was, I'd like to make an appointment.
Okay.
So simple, right?
Yeah.
But effective.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use it for so many different things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Not just medical appointments.
Give some examples.
Like you could use it to book a table at a restaurant.
Right.
Schedule a haircut. Or arrange a meeting.
It's just a really clear way to state what you want.
Yeah.
And it's polite.
Exactly.
It's like a perfect starting point for beginners.
Absolutely.
Because it just gets your point across.
Right. Another phrase they emphasized was, when are you free?
Okay.
Again, super straightforward.
Yeah.
But it's a great way to figure out somebody's availability.
Yeah.
Without sounding like demanding or anything.
You're not like forcing a specific time on them.
Right.
You're giving them the space to suggest something that works for them.
Exactly.
Which is, very common in English-speaking cultures.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that respect for people's schedules.
I like that.
It's built right into that phrase.
So let's walk through that role play that they did at the dentist's office.
Okay.
Because it really brings these phrases to life.
Yeah.
So it starts with the patient calling the dental office and saying, "Hi, I'd like to make an appointment to see the dentist, please."
Very polite.
Yeah.
Very clear.
Okay.
They're stating their purpose right away.
And then the receptionist responds with,
Okay.
"When would you like to come in?"
Okay, so they're giving the patient an opening.
Yes.
To suggest a time.
But instead of just like blurting out a specific time, the patient asks,
Okay.
"Do you have anything available on Friday?"
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
Because then you're not potentially setting yourself up for like a back and forth.
Right.
If that time's not available,
Exactly.
you're showing consideration for their schedule.
It's all about being respectful of the other person's time.
Yeah.
I like that.
So then the receptionist checks the schedule and offers a couple of options.
Okay.
We have a 10 a.m. or a 3 p.m. slot.
Oh, so they're giving the patient a choice.
Yeah.
Which again is very polite.
It's all about flexibility.
Yeah.
And accommodating individual schedules.
It just makes for a smoother interaction.
Absolutely.
When you think about those things.
I'm impressed with how much they pack into this simple role play.
Me too.
It's great for beginners.
Yeah, for sure.
And the patient picks the 10 a.m. appointment.
Perfect.
So it's showing even beginners can really participate in the conversation.
Right.
And make their preferences known.
So they're not just passively listening. They're actually engaging.
Yeah, they're taking control.
Exactly.
It's about building that confidence and feeling like you can communicate.
Yeah.
Even if your English isn't perfect.
And then they even provide their name clearly for the appointment.
Okay.
It's Alex Carter.
Nice and simple.
Straightforward.
Easy to understand.
So it's just a really great example of how even with limited English, you can still navigate these everyday situations.
Right. And that's what makes this podcast so valuable for English learners.
Okay, so now let's talk about some cultural tips that the podcast highlighted.
Right.
Because this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it goes beyond just the language itself.
It's about understanding the social norms, the expectations in English-speaking cultures.
So, for example, they talk about the importance of being polite.
Right.
And using please and thank you.
It's so important.
Yeah. I've noticed that even a simple thank you can go a long way.
It shows appreciation.
Yeah.
And respect.
Like you're acknowledging the other person's effort.
Exactly.
They also talked about canceling appointments properly.
Oh, yeah.
if you can't make it.
Or just disappear.
Right, don't just ghost.
Yeah, that's considered pretty rude.
Especially in English-speaking cultures.
It's much better to call and explain.
Yeah.
And maybe try to reschedule.
That's interesting because I've noticed that in some cultures, there's a lot more flexibility around appointments.
It's not as strict.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a good point.
It just goes to show how different cultures can have really different communication styles.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, there's the whole being on time thing.
Punctuality.
Yeah.
Super important in many English-speaking cultures.
I could see how that would make a good impression.
It shows you respect their time.
Yeah.
You're taking the appointment seriously. The podcast even suggested arriving a few minutes early if possible.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Just to make sure you're not late.
It's amazing how many, little cultural cues are involved in something as simple as making an appointment.
It's true.
It's not just about the words you say.
Right.
It's about all these unspoken rules.
Yeah, the cultural context.
Now, what I really liked about this podcast is that they went beyond just the basics.
Uh-huh.
They even had a section with tips for beginners.
Oh, nice.
Who are still feeling a little bit nervous.
Yeah, it can be intimidating.
About actually using these phrases in real life.
Yeah, for sure.
So their first tip was all about practice.
Okay, makes sense.
They said write down the key phrases and say them out loud.
Even if it feels a little silly.
Yeah, even if you feel silly, just do it.
It helps.
Yeah, the more you practice, the more natural it will become.
Exactly.
They also recommended listening to native English speakers as much as possible.
Oh, good idea.
Like movies, TV shows.
Music podcasts. All of that.
It's about immersing yourself in the language.
Exactly.
So you get used to the sounds.
And their third tip was super practical.
What's that?
Use language learning apps.
Oh, yeah, those are great.
There are so many good ones out there now.
It's amazing.
And they can really help you build your confidence.
Yeah, especially if you don't have a lot of opportunities to practice speaking in real life.
And then lastly, they give some really great advice.
Okay, I'm listening.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Oh, that's so important.
I think that's something that holds a lot of people back.
Yeah, for sure.
They're so worried about being perfect that they're afraid to even try.
But making mistakes is how you learn.
Exactly.
It's part of the process.
I love that they emphasize that.
Me too.
Because it's so true.
Yeah.
And speaking of learning.
Okay.
Remember that fun quiz they had at the end of the podcast?
Oh, yeah.
It was a really nice way to recap the key points.
And make sure people were paying attention. Yeah, it was like a little test.
I like it.
But in a fun way.
Right, not too serious.
So they had questions like,
okay,
what's a polite way to start making an appointment?
Okay.
And then they gave you a few different options to choose from.
Multiple choice.
Yeah.
I see.
And the answers were all pretty straightforward.
So it reinforces those key phrases that we've been talking about.
It was just a really nice touch to end the episode on.
Yeah, I agree.
A positive and engaging note.
It makes you want to keep learning.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about making appointments.
We have.
But for those of you who are learning English, why should you care about all this?
That's a good question.
Why is it important?
Well, on a practical level, it gives you the tools to handle everyday situations. Imagine being able to schedule a doctor's appointment or book a haircut or even arrange a meeting.
All in English.
Yeah, all in English.
That's pretty empowering.
It is.
It's like you're leveling up your English.
You're not just a bystander anymore.
Right.
You're an active participant.
You're taking control.
Exactly.
But it goes beyond just the practical stuff too.
Oh, absolutely.
It's also about building connections.
Yeah.
Forming relationships.
When you can communicate effectively in English, you open up a whole world of possibilities.
You can talk to more people.
Right.
You can participate in your community.
You can make new friends.
You can share your ideas.
Yeah, it's like breaking down those barriers.
And feeling more comfortable and confident.
In a new environment.
And the best part is, it doesn't have to be complicated.
Right.
Like this podcast showed us.
Simple phrases can go a long way.
As long as you use them correctly.
And confidently.
Exactly.
It's all about understanding that language is more than just words.
It's a way to connect with people.
To express yourself.
To navigate the world around you.
So even though we've focused on making appointments in this deep dive, the lessons we've learned apply to so many other situations.
Absolutely.
It's about embracing the challenge of learning.
And finding the joy in it.
Exactly.
So to wrap things up,
we
want to leave you with a question to think about.
All right. I like it.
what other everyday interactions might be surprisingly difficult. Or maybe surprisingly easy.
When you're learning English.
Like what seems simple on the surface. But actually requires a deeper understanding.
Of the language and culture.
Maybe it's ordering food at a restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Or asking for directions. Or even just making small talk with a cashier.
It's like those little moments become mini adventures.
When you're learning a new language.
They're chances to practice.
To learn from your mistakes.
And to connect with people.
Exactly.
So to our listeners out there. Keep exploring. Keep practicing.
Most importantly, keep connecting.
You got this.
The world is full of amazing people.
Who want to talk to you.
So don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Start those conversations.
Who knows?
Maybe your next appointment in English
will lead to a new friendship.
Or an unforgettable experience.
That's the beauty of language.
It opens up a world of possibilities.
So keep learning, keep growing.
And keep diving deep.
Into the wonderful world of communication.
Till next time.
Happy learning.